Hey, it's Vadim. We made it to episode 50. Honestly, when we started this, episode 1 was in January of 2020. I wasn't sure if we were going to make it this far. It was pre-pandemic days. A lot has changed since then. But here we are, and we're thrilled to still be doing this. Today's guest is Rusty Osborne. Rusty is first and foremost a musician. He's a bass player and vocalist. And you'll hear his story in his own words, but at one point he was playing over 200 shows a year and doing so really at the expense of his health. He's since significantly turned his life around through many years of research and trial and error, and he's become a health coach to help others achieve similar results faster. Rusty's story is really interesting, and it really struck a chord with me when I found his content on Instagram. I think for a lot of us, we feel like being successful as recording artists or as performing artists comes at a cost to our health, almost like they're mutually exclusive. I mentioned on some recent episodes that I started spending a lot more time in the studio some 13 months ago than I had before, and this comes with some challenges. I'm very concerned about my own health in this sphere because I have a part-time job where I'm in front of the computer. Obviously, the studio comes with a lot of computer time. So it can feel like all this hard work that we all know we have to put in is mutually exclusive with staying healthy. And one of the things that you'll hear in this episode is that it's absolutely not. This is an important episode. I know a lot of people listening might just be wanting tips and tricks and recording technique, but your health is something that is a lot harder to get back once you've lost it than it is to just develop healthy habits and not lose it. And I know a lot of people probably feel like they can just be invincible and go forever, but this has been proven time and time again to not be true. So setting some good habits, establishing some good habits in the studio and as musicians will really go a long way to ensuring your success in the long term. We get into a lot of interesting topics here, and not just in terms of how to stay healthy, but also how to improve performance through things like proper diet and proper rest. We actually talk about vocals, drums, and guitar and bass. So I hope you enjoy this episode. You'll hear Rusty is a very positive guy. He's very easy to talk to. I've really enjoyed the couple of conversations we've had, both offline and during the recording of this episode. You can find him at the Coach Rusty on Instagram or at Find Your Total Health on Instagram. And I encourage you to do that because I think he's doing free coaching calls. Like a free 15-minute coaching call, and he's just a pleasure to talk to, and you'll feel encouraged, I'm sure, listening to this episode. So I encourage you to reach out to him afterwards if you have any specific questions. Enjoy.
You're listening to the DIY Recording Guys podcast, your one-stop information source for DIY music production, with your hosts, Vadim Karaz and Benjamin Hall.
Rusty Osborne, welcome to the DIY Recording Guys podcast. How are you?
Doing fantastic. Thank you guys for having me.
Oh man, it's great to have you. No pressure, but this is actually our 50th episode.
Woo!
We've been doing this 50 weeks in a row. It's a bit of a round number, so no pressure, guys, but we got to make this a good one.
Yeah.
I'll do my best to tighten it up.
You're not the one we're worried about. It's Ben and I that I'm worried about.
Exactly.
So we're gonna get into all these interesting topics about health concerns for the recording enthusiast. But before we even do that, I want to ask you where in the world you are, because I know you're embarked on a little bit of an adventure together with your wife. So maybe say a couple things about that.
Yeah, currently we're in Salt Lake City. So a couple months ago, when there was no more gigs, we said, well, things are canceled. Why don't we take advantage of this, right? And every opportunity, any challenge in life is an opportunity for something else. So we sold our stuff. I gave my guitars to the guitarist in the band, so that, like, hey, you guys hold on to this, use them if you want them. I'll be back. And we packed up the van and headed out. So we stayed down near San Diego for a month. We came up to Salt Lake City. We actually just loved it so much we booked an extra month here.
Oh,
So
okay.
Oh, wow.
we're just loving it. It's a good town. The people are nice. Everybody's thoughtful. There's great food. There's hills right here that I can get to and just go run around at. So we're just like, if it's good, it's great. And the best ice cream shop I've ever been to. Oh man, so
wow.
excited. That's worth
Nice.
it. It's all like the healthy stuff too. Dairy-free, gluten-free, whatever you want to, So to
Oh, that's
have
amazing.
that, it's like, yes. And then next up, we're heading to Arizona for a little bit, and we're looking at heading over to Austin and Nashville and Chicago.
Oh, that's great.
Wow.
Coming up on the list. So
That's awesome. And you guys are just driving, right? You're just kind of driving point to point.
exactly, yeah.
That
We
is
got a
very
van that
cool.
we built out that we sleep in the back of when we want to, and yeah.
That's awesome, man. Well, we invited you on because, I think for a lot of reasons, but one is that Ben and I have spent more time in the studios this year than perhaps any other year of our lives. Obviously, we have this pandemic. Fitness and health are something that we all should be thinking about, and it's become harder, especially for those of us who like to spend time in the studio. And I saw some of your stuff on Instagram and saw your story, and then you and I chatted offline a little bit, and I was like, this is fantastic. The recording community needs to be thinking
Yes.
about this type of stuff. So we're going to get into a lot of different topics here, but I want you to talk a little bit about your story and your background as a musician, and what were some of the, like, quote unquote, come to Jesus moments for you with respect to to health.
Yeah, absolutely. And one theme that I've noticed, just to kind of preface this, is like sometimes you got to learn the same lesson a handful of times. It's like, how many times do you have to hit some sort of rock bottom till you learn the lesson that's getting thrown at you? And so something for everybody to just kind of stir around. Like, life is throwing lessons at you. Are you taking the learning from it? Because if not, it's going to hit you harder next time until you learn.
Wow, good point.
And what really illustrated that for me, let me back up to music, right? So, like most of us, picked up guitar in like middle school. I'm like, I'm going to be Yngwie Malmsteen. Let's go. And just like sitting in the shed nonstop, just trying to play faster. And then I get into high school and I'm doing okay, but then the other guitarists are getting better than me, and so I'm the fat guy that gets put on bass, as the story goes. I slim out a little bit in high school, but after that I got pretty fat again. And fast forward into like the professional music, actual career of my life, and I was playing in bars all the time where I was playing, 21 nights in a row, and then one night off, and then another 20 nights in a row. And so oftentimes it's, for years it was 200 plus gigs a year, which was super cool. Ton of awesome experience, so much to do and so much to learn. But the lifestyle that comes with that, right? It's all of that plus, teaching lessons during the day and making all the ends meet and making sure that the band is moving forward as well as playing the show as well. And, then suddenly I was like obese and always drunk and just not doing good for myself. And it was a real mess, man. It was a mess. So I had to do something. So, there's obviously it's like, okay, what do healthy people do? Let's just start there. Let's look at what healthy people do. They look like they run a lot. I'm going to start doing that. And so if I woke up with a hangover, I was like, all right, you got to run. So I had this kind of habit built in. But if you're hungover and then you're running a bunch, your body is never recovering. And so it just kept getting worse and worse, more and more unhealthy, to the point where I blew out my arms with tendonitis, because this all ties in with inflammation and things. And so I couldn't play hardly at all, which is a serious issue. And it was a mess. Not to mention I was still fat. All I was doing was running. Like, I thought this would work, man. And it turns out you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't outrun a regular nights of 12 beers and 10 shots. You just can't outrun that. And after injuries and issues and illnesses and like chronically stuffy nose and just feeling stupid, it's like something's got to change. So once my wife and I dialed in, how does nutrition work? Then like melted off the fat. I melted off 85 pounds while still eating like 4,000 calories a day, because you can just eat the right foods and melt this stuff off if you're doing it right. And I wasn't even exercising anymore. I gave up on running. I gave up on exercising and just figured out food. And through that, learning how to navigate that, as well as playing all these shows, as well as teaching these lessons, as well as trying to help people the best that I can music-wise, it was like, okay, if I can put this puzzle piece together, and suddenly I'm able to have unbelievable energy. I'm able to help the drummer load in and out every gig if I wanted to. I didn't do it every time, not going to lie. But I had the energy if I really wanted to do it.
Right.
Yeah, I'm still a bass player. Whatever, make fun of me. But if I could do all of this while having that musician schedule, then I know the rest of us can do it too. Right? So because of that, a couple of years ago, I started health coaching. And now we've had just a ton of musician clients coming through, losing a bunch of weight, gaining a ton of energy, and really showing up on so many new levels for their selves, their music, the work that they're doing outside of that, their families, and it's so awesome to see these changes. So that's where my heart's at. That's what I'm doing now, and that's our life. So
that's awesome.
I kind of want to pick your brain a little bit, because I've been on the road as well, and just maybe kind of unpacking, why does a musician lifestyle tend to be so unhealthy? And so I kind of put together a little bit of an outline of what I imagine is the typical touring lifestyle. Like if you're in a band and you're listening to this, you've never gone on the road before, but you want to, this is kind of how it breaks down, like every day. So wake up at noon, load into the venue, maybe go eat lunch, come back, do sound check. Then you eat dinner, play your show. You're done around midnight or 1 o'clock in the morning after you've done all the, meeting the people, selling all the merch, and cleaning up. Then you drive 4 hours to the next city. You go to bed at 4 or 5 a.m. in the morning, and you're sleep deprived, and you got to do it all over again. So where's time for fitness there? And then if you're drinking and partying a lot, it's just, like you said, it's a mess. And so I guess first your thoughts on that, and then maybe how can you combat that?
Yeah. It's a serious thing, man. And it's even wider than just musicians too. We're really thrown off with our times, especially now when if you're sitting inside all day, you haven't seen the sun at all. We're really throwing our body's biological clock way off. And when we throw one system off like that, other systems start to fall off. Other systems start to fall off. Our body, the way that we work, we're a system of different systems that need to work together. And like, think about when you're in Logic, but you're plugged in through your interface, and you've got to go through your de-esser. You've got all these different systems and plugins and things that got to work together to get you that sound. If you start with a crappy mic, what's the point? And
right.
Really, at
nice,
the, at
good
the
tie-in, man.
Thank you. So really, if we're starting with a really bad schedule, which it can be really hard to work with, but that really messed up schedule is foundationally throwing off all these other habits, all these other rhythms that we have in our life.
Sure.
And just that is enough to drain the mitochondrial energy from our cells, which when we're suddenly low energy, we have less willpower. If we have less willpower, why the hell would I want to go lift weights after sound check? Why the heck would I want to go for a run? Who in the right mind would get a salad, right? Give me the pizza. And that's just a natural biological thing too, because your brain wants what's most calorie dense. It wants all that cheese, all the meat, all the dough and that stuff, and then the beers, because that's theoretically going to give you energy. Because as cavemen, our brains are wired like that. But in this new world, I mean, the cavemen didn't have pizza. They had
that's true. Yeah.
They had venison and berries, and so that was okay for them. But since our biological clock is thrown off, our energy is drained, and we just get in this negative spiral. So suddenly, bad sleep, bad food, no exercise, mental health goes down the drain, which just reiterates that cycle over and over. So that's what I feel is really at the heart of a lot of musicians' issues is honestly sleep cycles and balancing your wakefulness times and your circadian rhythms.
Yeah. So this the schedule that Ben brought up, I mean, it in some ways, I mean, touring right now is kind of not a thing, but I do think it's important to cover because a lot of musicians aspire to it. In some ways, some of that is unavoidable. Like you got to drive to the next venue, you got to play your show.
Yeah.
So if you were to go back in time, let's say, when you were touring real heavily or playing a lot of shows, 200 shows a year, what does a healthy routine maybe look like there? What would you have wanted to be doing back then?
Yeah. So what you can do is everything that you can. We have to do everything that we can in our power. But still, we're going to play the gig, like we're not going to be in bed till 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning, right? So we have to prioritize the other habits that can make up for that as much as possible. So the biggest things there are, okay, can I just wake up whenever I wake up, even if it's noon, and get some sunlight in my eyes, do any sort of exercise to tell your body that it's daytime. You don't have to do a ton even. Like a lot of our clients there's a 7-minute workout that a lot of us do. It's literally 7 minutes. There's a free app. And you just like wake up, do 7 minutes workout. You could say, okay, I at least did something. And when you've started your day like that, then maybe when you get to the next part of where you're at lunch, you're more likely to have something better for you. And actually, you have to, because if you don't, you're going to keep going down that spiral and really shoot yourself in the foot in your music career, right? It's going to go down the drain if you're not functioning well. So really figuring out when can I fit in some sort of exercise? When can I, or how can I get the right food? Or at least not so much wrong food.
Yeah.
Right. At least choose a straight tequila over a like 7 beers. You can get to the same result, man, but with a lot less of the junk. So, what can you do? And I think the foundational shift here is really not just looking for the tactics, but the foundational of how can I? Asking that question, how can I make this work? So for me, figuring out how can I get a workout in? I would bring a kettlebell on the road. I'd bring a kettlebell so you'd see me on the side of the stage just like, all right, I'm just gonna get some in. All right, here we go. Like, do something. I'm the weird guy. Like, you got to be weird if you're gonna get somewhere. I swear. I would go for a jog. I'd be the one out in the sunlight when everybody else is in the trailer, even if it's sweltering hot.
Yeah,
I would do whatever I can to, even if it's a whole pizza sitting there and that's what they got for us. I would rather skip that meal than have a pile of junk. Because in my opinion, no food is better than bad food.
Yeah. If
you're an absolute stick, if you have 0% body fat, then we can have that argument for the opposite. But until you're below like 6% body fat, man, no food is better than bad food, and I'll stand by that every day. So that's a couple of foundational things to look at. Like, how can I make this work instead of complaining about it and falling face first into pizza anyways?
Yeah, right.
I'm having light bulbs go off right now, even for my lifestyle and how to make it better. And the sunlight thing is a huge thing that I never really think about. And my wife and I recently, we just got a dog. And just getting a dog and having to take her out for walks has really helped improve my mood, my energy. And I think it's two things. It's exercise and it's getting out and seeing the sun, because you're right. Whether you're a musician on the road or in the studio like us, we can spend a lot of time in our man caves looking at and not getting any light except for our blue screens in front of us. That's got to mess with your brain a whole bunch.
Oh, yeah. And that's one reason that I wanted to bring it up here. Most other podcasts I go on, it's much more on nutrition and fitness and that kind of stuff. But because I know who we're talking to today and how many people in general have switched into studio life, we spend how much time indoors?
Yeah.
And I wanted to think, okay, what is the one biggest shift that you guys could make for more energy, for more health, for everything? And like, yeah, don't eat the Snickers, have a salad for sure. But like, let's get some sunlight, people. Like there's just like there's junk food and good food. The same thing applies for lighting.
Yeah.
So there is such a thing as junk light and such a thing as amazing, healthy, Whole Foods kind of light, where you get out in the sun. We need sunlight, real sunlight, because that's what we evolved to get. And it actually changes a ton of different systems in our body. So It's super
That's crazy.
fun and interesting stuff. So yeah,
That's a great point. And I mean, even from, we'll get into some of the mental health stuff, but my wife and I, during the pandemic, we've started doing this thing. We call it our rain or shine walk, which is like, no matter what, once a day, we're just going to go outside and walk around and look for stray cats or whatever. But like, just that getting outside, because we both get into these moods of like, I'm sure everybody listening to this has had this feeling. You're frustrated and you can't get a problem solved. You're trying to figure something out. You want to put your head down and plow through, and just going outside, getting your heart rate up, getting that fresh air, getting some sunlight. All of a sudden you're like, what was I even so upset about?
yeah.
So it's definitely a nice part of the routine. There's kind of this contradiction where you mentioned it, like you're tired and you're maybe don't have the best lifestyle. And so you're like, well, I'm too tired to work out. And this is almost like, this is a cycle that you have to break, or it's a habit that you have to develop. Talk more about some strategies for doing that, or tricking yourself, or whatever you recommend.
Yeah, absolutely. We've actually got a formula for this specific thing that I call it the drive formula. How can we get the drive to do these things? How can we find motivation whenever we don't have it? Because look, like if you don't have energy, you need to create it. You can create your own energy. And the way we do that is by these healthy things that you know you should do. Eat better, get some exercise, get some sunlight, sleep, right? If you just think about those 4 things, like there you go, you're set. You know how to do that. But why aren't we doing it? Because this is honestly one of the biggest issues, especially right now. If gyms aren't open and you normally would go, and suddenly you're not motivated to do a workout at home. It's just not as fun, right? You don't have the gear. You don't want to have to learn a new workout. Like, I'll get to that later. Let me just get back. I got a project to finish.
Right.
And so I developed this formula, adapted it from a few other sources, but what I found that's been really helpful for our clients is I call it the drive formula. And to drive, you need wheels. And this is how we can break it down. So on the left side of the equation where you see the word drive, you can write down the goal that you want to accomplish. And if it's lose 20 pounds, if it's, finish this project, get this recording done, what is the goal that you're driving for, right? And even if it's just figuring out how to get healthier, that's okay. Write that down. And then on the other side of the equation, we'll take the word wheels and break it up. So that WH stands for the word why. Why is it that you want that goal? Why is it that you want to lose 20 pounds? How can we tie some serious emotion into that? Because action driven by emotion is actually going to get done, right? And it's going to get done more effectively. Think of a project that you worked on for someone that is just a bad singer. Like, how bad did you really want to do that?
Yeah.
You don't want to sit there and tweak their vocals over and over, and it's just, you're not that motivated to work on it. Whereas if you know that this is your heart's passion project, you're so excited to finish this recording session and dig in there and make it beautiful. You forget to eat, you forget to sleep, you forget to do these things because you got such a strong why. Right? So that's the WH in the word wheels. The E stands for physical energy. We need some physical energy to do things. So we need gas in the gas tank. If you don't have gas in the gas tank, you got to take a nap. You got to figure out how to put some gas in that gas tank to get this energy to get moving, right? So check your posture, check your breathing. Have you been in the sun? Did you eat junk food? Is that why your energy's down? What is it that's dragging that energy down? And then the last piece of this, the ELS at the end of wheels, stands for easy little steps. What are the 1 to 3 easiest little steps that you could take towards that goal? Think of this like your GPS in your car, right? You literally, it's going to give you 1 or 2 things. You turn right, turn left. If you get to that left, it'll give you the next direction. Motivation is exactly the same. Where once we say, okay, well, I know step 1 is, okay, if I want to lose 20 pounds, right? We're going to take that as our example. Step 1 could be stand up from the freaking couch. Step 2 could be put your shoes on. If that's all you do, chances are you'll end up walking outside for your 3rd step. And once we start that cycle, the motivation and the willpower shows up afterwards, because motivation comes after action. So if we can remember, motivation comes after action. All we got to do is get 1 action step done. And if you're really low on any of those other pieces in the equation, you really don't want to work on this project because that guy's voice is just terrible, right? I don't want to hear that, but I know they're paying me. I got to get it done. Energy, man, I'm exhausted, I'm tired, and I don't want to, right? If you have one stupidly easy step, it might be take a deep breath. Do I have a little more energy? Can I stand up from the couch? Okay, no, not yet. Let's take another deep breath. Come on. Okay, we can do this. Let's just sit up. And that's already 3 action steps. And I'm that much closer to getting to my goal. That much closer. I'm building that energy. So suddenly I've got easy steps and more energy. And my why, I'm like, well, why do I even want to do this, man? Like, I got to get this project off my plate. There's other important things waiting. If I get this done, I get paid. If I don't get it done, I don't get paid. Oh, man, now I've got a strong why. I've got some physical energy built up, and I know a couple steps I can take to move towards it. So this motivation equation, the drive formula, you can plug and play and see why you're lacking motivation. You could literally say, what is my why right now? Do I have enough energy? Do I have easy steps? The answer to any of those is no. You know where to focus. You know where to take your next steps or what to do to start getting that together. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah. I love that idea of break. I mean, we talk about this with recording all the time too. It's like something like recording a song is a very intimidating drive as well. But like, that's exactly how you take it, is one little step at a time. But you said something really key there that I want to reiterate is, and I never thought about it this way before, is that action actually precedes motivation, which is key. Cause I think it's easy to think about that as being backwards. Like, well, no, first I need to be motivated. It's like, no, not necessarily. It's the action kind of develops, it fosters that motivation as well, which is huge. So yeah, we started talking a little bit about the studio mindset and like what are some of the risks? And Ben, I want to hear what you as a studio rat yourself have to say about this as well. Like, what are some of the risks that we face in the studio as opposed to touring, which we talked about, you know, the time scheduling is difficult and so on. What about the studio?
Yeah, it's another dangerous place, man, but it's so much fun. So much fun.
It is.
So first up, let's focus on the good thing, man. I love thinking about the good stuff. And like what's awesome about it is you have so much more control over your studio. You can decide if bottles of whiskey come in or bottles of mineral water. Right? You can make that decision.
It's true.
Good point.
You can decide if you want to burn some Palo Santo wort or burn a whole bunch of weed, right? Which one you get to choose, which is going to influence the next choice of what are you going to grab for lunch or dinner or what. You can choose all of these things. So when right now, when everybody's locked down at home, is the best time, the absolute best time that you could take control of your health because you have so many more things under your control.
Yeah, I like that.
You've got grocery stores that you can go to. You could set routines. You could set an actual work schedule that mimics what we evolved to live in. Like you don't have to work till 3 a.m, you know?
Right.
Obviously, like some of us are driven, and I'm this way too. I get way focused and way driven late at night. But then I'm like depressed or anxious or eating junk food the next day because I didn't have enough energy for the next day. So there's issues to play with there, and you've got to figure out what works for you. But you have the opportunity right now to take that control that you have. You do have it, even if you think you don't. You're lying to yourself, damn it. You do have control that you can have because you're in your studio, because you're at home, you're near your local grocery store.
Yeah, you're controlling your environment, which is huge. Yeah, Ben, you do anything in your environment in your studio environment to foster better, healthier lifestyle?
I like to think that I do. I mean, I love a lot of the things that Rusty said just about controlling your environment and controlling your schedule. So I have tried to be, now that we've been locked down and not been able to tour or do anything outside, I've tried to become more disciplined in, let's go to bed early. And it's actually been great. Like, I have not felt more rested from my nights of sleeping than I have during this pandemic because so often I'll stay up super late because that's when I feel most creative. But then I still got to wake up early in the morning to go work my day job or whatever. And so then you're sleep deprived and it's a vicious cycle. And so then you got to take naps in the middle of the day. And I haven't had that feeling of needing to take naps. Like I'm able to make it through a whole day, and it just
Yeah.
feels a lot more balanced in that way.
Right on. Very cool. One of the challenges I have working from home, actually, right before we started recording this, my wife and I did this like one of these YouTube, at home workout videos.
Yeah.
And one of the challenges is that it's back to environment. It's one environment day after day. And like maybe before you could like go outside and run or whatever, but now it's getting cold and we're in Pennsylvania, Rusty. So it's cold, it's getting darker. What are some ways, or what do you recommend for keeping it fresh and for like mixing it up and like, okay, maybe you come up with a 4-week program and that works, but then you got to do another 4 weeks after that. So like, what do you do to keep that motivation going after you've built it up?
Yeah. Great question. Great question. First of all, like, it's just not easy and it kind of sucks. Like, let's just be real.
Right
Like,
on, yeah.
I'm not going to kid around and say, it's so easy, guys. All you got to do is like, no, man. Like, I don't want to work out every day either. This morning, I was going to do that 7-minute workout I told you about because it's so short and easy. And like, the workout's not easy when you push yourself. But I was like, I don't feel like it. And I'm doing it in the same damn room. Like, I'm hidden in this, like, not closet, but it's like a spare bedroom in this Airbnb that we're at. And there's hardly any sunlight. I've done so many workouts in this room. I want to get out, man.
Right.
Yeah.
And so what we really have to me, it comes back to that same equation. I've got a very, very strong why. I am the healthiest guy you've met, damn it. And I got to keep it that way. I've got to keep my energy up. I know I need to. I've got to show up for my clients because they're looking for this from me, right? I need to do this. Plus, I want to feel good. And I know I feel so good afterwards. So first up, just remembering, like, this is temporary. This too shall pass. We will get out of lockdown. You can work out at a gym someday again, just not today, right?
Yeah.
So what do you got to do? And it comes back to that question that we started with, which is, how can I? How can I figure it out? So now that we kind of touched on like the foundational things to be aware of, like, okay, what are some tactics? What can we do? Honestly, what I loved, and I did this when we were down in San Diego, I hired a trainer. They kicked my ass. It's so much easier. And there's so many trainers online that...
Oh, is it like a remote trainer?
Yeah, there's remote trainers. There's, at the time,
cool.
we were able to get into a gym because it was a big garage, and so we were all really spaced out, and it was right next door. So I did have that option. But there's different people that do online fitness training. They'll do live sessions with you. One guy I love, his name is Mike Schwartz. You guys listen to that podcast, The Dose, that I was on with him. He does online fitness training for musicians. So nobody here has an excuse. Get yourself in with him. If you're looking to lose a lot of weight, let me know. That's where I specialize in, definitely in nutrition and these foundations that we're talking about and building these routines in. And anybody that's just like, man, I need more workouts, I'm like, go talk to Mike. He will do everything, especially when it comes to regards of posture and breathing and these other really crucial things too.
You mentioned, actually on that episode I listened to, you were talking about, how diet, maybe more so than exercise, is kind of a very personalized thing. Like what works for one person may not work for another person. How do you go about figuring out what works for you?
Fantastic question. This is one of the most critical things that I think everyone in the world needs to figure out. Because we are all special little snowflakes. And don't let nobody tell you different. Your mom was right the whole time. You are a special snowflake. And even things that worked for your biological mother or brother will not necessarily work for your body. If you don't understand this concept, because it's kind of new, you've been into more of like the counting calories or counting macros, like that stuff can get some results, but it's really not sustainable. It doesn't get to the root of the issue here, which is your body gets inflamed when you don't treat it well. If we have poor gut health, it's going to cause inflammation. And if we've got poor gut health and you're dealing with any mental health issues, these are directly tied through something called the vagus nerve, which ties your brain to what's called your second brain, your gut. There's actual neurons in your gut. And that's where, literally, 75% of serotonin, that hormone that makes you feel good, is produced in your gut. So if you're eating anything that doesn't work for your body, you are not giving yourself even a chance at chemical happiness, let alone like emotional happiness, right? And so this goes really deep. And this, obviously I'm passionate about this. I could rant about this for days and hours, and I have. So we need to address this. We need to address, what does your body need to function at its best? And you guys are different than me. I know what works for me. I know what doesn't work for me because I've done the work. And I'm going to break it down.
Is that work like, is that like trial and error work? Or maybe is that what you're about to get to?
Yeah, it's trial and error, man. It is trial and error, but it has to be done specifically to get it done quickly. Like, you can figure this out over a span of 10 years and just say, oh, I get some bloat. I get bloated if I have too much pizza or cow cheese. And, I feel worse than I used to when I have beer. Or we can take a real intense approach, which is what we do with our clients. And we eliminate a bunch of foods that are typically inflammatory for most people. And we systematically reintroduce these one at a time and look for every reaction that we might be getting. So remember at the beginning of this episode, I mentioned how I had a chronically stuffy nose.
Yeah.
I couldn't even sleep. I had the nose strip on. I was taking nose sprays. I taped my mouth shut, and I'd still all over the place, and I couldn't sleep. Man, I was a mess. 3 days into my first time going through this process, nose was clear, sleeping like a baby.
Wow.
I thought it was allergies or something. I didn't think it was food, man. It was food. Just food. And if that's an issue, if something like that clears up, that is a signal that we've got so many other issues here that need addressing.
Yeah, I think we take that for granted a lot, because when you're younger, I mean, we're all relatively young, but when you're in like your early 20s, you can get away with a lot of stuff. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's when we develop a lot of these habits, right? And then you're like, why don't I feel like I didn't like I used to? Well, you could probably get away with more then than you can get away with now. So that's really interesting. That diet has such a profound impact, which certainly not something I've thought about. Yeah, Ben, you got any ads there? I don't know. We don't talk about this, Ben. You and I talk all about so much stuff, but we never talk about this.
That's why we're here. That's why we're here.
Yeah, and I love talking about this kind of stuff because I'm pretty health motivated too, just because I was an athlete in high school. So I like to think about that, and I was big into swimming, and to be a good swimmer, you got to be strong and have endurance. So anytime where you're doing weightlifting or cardiovascular health training, it kind of naturally makes your body want to purge itself of any toxins, because if you're ingesting toxic food into your gut, you can't perform at that higher level. So it kind of naturally was doing that for me. So in some ways I was more in tune, I think, with what my body needed to be healthy, but it's still something that I struggle with. And I think across the board, you see people that maybe whenever especially if they first start going on tour, or maybe after they've gone on tour for a long time, or no matter what you're doing in your life, whenever you push your body up to its physical limitations, that's when you start to see things breaking down. I remember watching some scientist on YouTube kind of talking tongue in cheek about this, like the second brain of the gut bacteria that actually communicates with your real brain. And they were saying kind of tongue in cheek, but I think it illustrates a good point that, maybe humans aren't actually in control of their actions. It's your gut bacteria, and we're just carriers for them all around, which I don't think is true, but it brings up a good point that if we're not giving our gut, if we're not giving our body good things to eat, then we're kind of sabotaging our own goals and stuff that we want to achieve, because now our gut is thinking, well, you haven't fed me the right way, or now I'm craving these certain foods because I give myself French fries every day. So we're totally just kind of hijacking the whole system whenever we don't treat ourselves good. And it's such a tough thing to remember because, like you said earlier, if you're a driven person, like a lot of studio people are, they want to achieve something with their life, whether or not it's changing the world or just recording a song. That becomes a driving force, and you kind of forget about all these other little things that are simple changes that make a big difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. And you're right. What you said at the end there, which is we get into these projects in the studio, we're motivated, we spend a ton of time. And so I want to get into some of the ergonomics issues here. okay, we're all kind of guitarists or bassists, so let's start there. What are the ergonomics concerns and maybe good habit versus bad habit for playing a lot of guitar in the studio or standing up or whatever? What are some of the things you guys think about?
First up, top of mind is especially because I had such a horrible bout of tendonitis. It was in both arms, medial and lateral epicondylitis. I was a wreck for about 6 months. I couldn't
Was
play
that from
unless I was
playing
on
or from
stage.
exercising?
Yeah, from playing.
From playing. Okay.
Yeah. So I was already playing like 40 hours a week between like gigs and teaching, and then I obviously had practice enough to keep my skills up. And then I bought 2 basses one week. My wife was like, "Oh, they're both on sale. Like, go ahead, go buy them both." I'm like, "I love you. You're the best. Let's get married again." Anyway, so I buy the basses, and this is when I learned about the difference in string tension on a flat wound P bass versus like a round wound J bass, and I played an extra 40 hours on top of that, and it just wrecked my arms. Plus, I was doing some weightlifting, and I did not sleep very well, and I was partying. So my body just broke down. And so the biggest learning lesson from all of this that is related to your question, like the ergonomics of playing so much, what do? At the very end of the day, we cannot fix any issues in our hands, in our feet, anywhere in our body if we do not address our spinal posture first. Overall, ergonomics, spine, and all things posture. So the ways we can do that, first of all, get into exercising. Just start. I don't care what you do something. If you've gotten that far, step 2 is get into any resistance exercise. So if it's at home, you're doing push-ups, squats, pull-ups. If you got a pull-up bar, get a kettlebell, swing it around a little bit. And just that is going to start moving our body in ways that we haven't in a while. And it's going to start changing our musculature to be a little more proper. Now, it is possible to do this in a wrong way with bad form, but treat it like you practice your instrument. You just got to learn some form. You're going to learn some riffs. You're going to learn like proper technique. And we're going to start getting this posture back to where it is. And once we can really focus on that posture, most other issues are going to start dissipating. Not in every respect. Sometimes you need to go get more help and really figure out to dial it in. When I had that tendonitis, I would have paid any amount of money to get out of that. And I was just in pain for at least 6 months. Absolute pain. So if you're in that kind of pain, ask for help. Please ask for help. Dear Lord, ask for help. If you're even getting to think that you might get there, ask for help. You can send me a message right now on Instagram and just say like, "Help, I'm in pain." And either I will help you, I've got other colleagues and people that help with this all the time. So please ask for help. But coming back to the I'm really passionate and angry at how hard it is for us as men to ask for help. So I'm going to say it a million goddamn times. Like, we need help, and it's okay to say that. It's okay.
Yeah.
So I just get really mad sometimes because I was there too. And I talk to people all the time that say, "I was so embarrassed to ask you for help." But like now we've got people that are curing depression, losing 50 pounds, 80 pounds just from changing these things. So ask for help. It's so worth it.
Related to that, though, I think is as men, this idea of, there's no gain without the pain. Maybe talk about that a little bit. And I mean, is that true at all, or is it completely false?
Oh, man. Well, I think it depends on how you view it, right? It's a matter of perspective. And everything in life, man, there's paradox everywhere, no matter where we look. Yeah, there's 3 things from a book I just read called The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. Like spiritual, some hippie stuff, but it's pretty fun. And he said the 3 things that are constant are paradox, change, and humor. Because we got to laugh at how like stupid we are sometimes, right? And how many things that are so different. So sometimes it's just a fact that getting out of your comfort zone is going to get you to grow. Sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, if we're going to put it in terms of a workout, is going into the pain cave, like going deep and hard, as far as you can, as long as you can, as hard as you can, and it's going to hurt, man. But that's a hormetic stressor, which means we cause some short-term pain to get some long-term growth. When you're weightlifting and you're doing those bicep curls because I know you just want those big guns, right? You know, we got to get them. Curls for the girls, right? So when we're doing that, we're actually tearing apart muscle fibers. We're literally tearing apart our body a little bit so that way it can go in and regrow that muscle. So sometimes, absolutely, you need pain to gain. However, if you are burning yourself out, you're not gaining anything.
Yeah.
If you're working your day job all day, you come home and you grab some fast food on the way home, and you're in the studio because you got projects that got to get done. And then you're only sleeping 4 hours. And then you wake up and do it all over again. Like, that's going to kill you. That's going to kill you. That's where we see autoimmune issues show up. We see this tendinitis like I had show up as a result of that kind of lifestyle. We're going to see heart disease, cancer down the road is all related to this cycle that we get into that just ruins us. So in that case, oh my God, no. Take a deep breath, reevaluate your priorities. What can wait a minute? And maybe you need to take 3 weeks on that project instead of 2.
There's 2 things that stick out to me there. One is when I first got into doing studio stuff heavily, and I remember hearing people say that sort of thing is like, no, burnout is a real thing. You can't do it 7 days a week. You can't do it 12 hours a day. And my thought was like, you can't, but I can, right?
Challenge.
Exactly.
I feel like that's such a tendency of all of us to have, because for 1 week, 2 weeks, that could even feel good. You're like, man, I'm crushing it. I'm getting so much stuff done. But a lot of this is about sustainability and what's going to be a sustainable career for you. So that's one thing that jumped out at me. The second thing you said that I really liked was just like the get up, swing a kettlebell around. I found that just changing what you're doing is a good way to minimize the risk of those repetitive exercises. So for example, when I was working a day job full time and I was on just the computer and mouse all the time, then like playing guitar would actually make my hands feel better because it was like a different posture and a different set of movements. And so I think part of the key for me has been like, just do something different, whatever it is, right? Mix it up. Don't just spend 8 hours like in one position. That seems to be bad.
Yeah. There's actually a saying that goes around in the fitness world of the best exercise for you is the one you're not doing.
Nice.
We need to constantly be changing. Our body needs adaptation. There's actually a principle called the specific adaptation to imposed demand principle, the SAID principle. And what this says is if we're doing one motion too much, our body's going to do its best to adapt to that to make it more efficient. So this is why if you're driving down the road, you see a bunch of cyclists riding by and you see that there's like 7 tubby ones, you know, they're a little bit big. And it's because their body is doing whatever it can to make them efficient cyclists, which means, well, what do I need to burn when I'm cycling for 100 miles? Fat. Oh, I should store a lot more fat. And that's what it does.
Yeah.
Whereas if we can balance that with some intense weight training that's going to spike your heart rate way high, we can shift that demand, right? Same thing if you're just sitting and clicking around on the mouse and on the keyboard, you play a little bit, come back to it. Like, we're using these same muscles over and over. Your body's going to do what it can to make those more efficient, but sometimes at the cost of other things. So you're going to suddenly have triceps that are just not activating anymore. And that's not going to support you well. Your spine starts to get out of line because your strap is on one side and you're sitting there like this the whole time. And it's trying to just make that position comfortable because it wants to feel good in the short term. That's what our body wants, is to feel good short term. Our brain is one that has to figure out how to like, no, we got to make this last, right?
Yeah.
So we got to watch out for that.
Yeah, right on. Talk about vocals a little bit. You guys were kind of chatting about vocals offline here, and Ben, I know you've got way more firsthand vocal experience than I do. All I know is when I do these podcasts occasionally by myself, by the end of 45 minutes, my throat is like sore. So I can't imagine singing. So talk a little bit about the ergonomics and concerns there.
You got it. So first up, let's make this an action-oriented podcast. How about everybody takes a hydration break right now? Everybody listening, let's get some water in.
Nice.
Hydration is key. Hydration is key for vocal health.
I've always got mine. That is important.
All right.
That felt good.
Now that we are lubricated, Here we go. Step 1, hydrate, people. Hydrate or dihydrate, man. That's my motto. We got to stay hydrated. Especially when it comes to like tendonitis and these issues, we actually need hydration to be flowing through our fascia, which is this webbing that goes throughout our muscles, tendons, and bones. If that stuff isn't properly hydrated, we're just wrecking ourselves. So just a little tie-in back to that. Got to stay hydrated. Now, as far as vocal health goes, the second thing, posture is actually critical.
Huh.
And so coming back to the stuff we talked about before, almost every problem we have in the world are fixed by like these foundations that we were talking about today. So getting that posture allows you to open up that diaphragm, open up your lungs in a much more powerful way. So that way we can project properly. We can keep our vocal folds at the level that they're supposed to be at, so that where they're not tearing each other apart. Just by shifting our posture and our hydration, those two things, you can fix like a ton of vocal issues in the span of like an hour of learning about posture and hydration. So it's critical. Absolutely critical.
Like posture, is that like the old, like the book on the head balancing thing? Like what is good posture for a vocalist? I honestly have no idea.
Yeah. Great question. There's a million different thoughts on exactly what it is. Should you try Alexander technique, which focuses on a certain way of posture? Should you just be doing yoga and learning how your body moves through? Should you be focusing on these more like biomechanical, like science people on how you should stand? And the truth is, man, do anything. You're going to get better. Just do something. Just do something. So that's step 1. But ideally, and something everybody can do right now, is if you're sitting, you should probably stand, because standing is better for you. But we're sitting here because that's the way that we are, and we can practice this in a little bit. When you're standing, let's start with your feet. Look down at your feet. I want you to put them parallel, completely parallel, shoulder width apart.
Okay.
And then pretend like you're screwing your feet into the ground. So your right foot is going clockwise, your left foot is going counterclockwise. And what that's going to do, so don't move your feet at all. Just create that tension by keeping your feet in the same place, but giving it that feeling of trying to screw into the ground. And that's going to activate the muscles in your legs, in your glutes, in your posterior chain, which then can travel up into your the rest of your body and get that better posture going. So just, if you do nothing else, take that away from it. I promise you, the first time I did this, I swear I got like 3 more notes at the top of my vocal range, and I was not hurting my voice nearly as much just by thinking about my feet. It was wild.
That's so weird.
Wow.
So crazy. Yeah. And then the next piece of that, tighten up your core a little bit. There's plenty more to this, but just for starters, right? Screw your feet into the ground, keep your glutes tight, keep your core a little tight, tuck your chin back, chest out. And if you want to envision the person with the book on top of their head, that gets your chest up a little bit. Your chin is tucked back. So that's going to help when you're sitting at the computer for a long period of time, which is really crucial for, especially if you're spending a lot of time sitting down.
So what can you say about diet and vocals in particular? And I know, unfortunately for me, I struggle with some acid reflux. So that has been the biggest bane for me whenever it comes to do vocals, because like if I'm planning on doing, let's say I'm preparing to do vocals for tomorrow, what I eat tonight is directly going to affect that, because if I eat even something too late, all night long, I'm going to have acid reflux. It's going to be splashing up against my vocal cords. And then all of a sudden I have a sore throat and everything feels inflamed. So yeah, like it takes a lot of, vocalists really need to be thinking about diet and all those type of issues a lot more.
Yes, absolutely. And we see this actually a lot, especially with vocalists with acid reflux. This is a specific problem that's really critical to address. So this, if we let it go on too long, that acid is going to get up into our esophagus more, into our trachea, and it's going to mess with the actual structure of the cells and can become something called Barrett syndrome, which can definitely be precancerous just by allowing this acid reflux to happen. So the critical thing here to remember is that none of these conditions are definite. They are not in your future if we can take care of the foundations ahead of time. So if we have acid reflux, that is one of those signals that we're looking for from our body that we ate something that doesn't agree with it. or possibly we ate at the wrong time. Like taking it back to the beginning thing, when we eat is just as important as what we eat. So taking a look at that is really critical. And in general vocal health, if we have any inflammation in our body, if it's showing up anywhere else, it's going to affect your vocal. Just by warming up your voice, you're actually purposely inflaming them a little bit so that way the vocal cords hit perfectly together. And if we're
interesting.
Yeah, it's super interesting. That's like what a warm-up does, is supposed to give it just enough inflammation that they're coming together perfectly like they should. Now, if we're already inflamed and then we're doing these warm-ups, suddenly you might have your left vocal cord a little thicker and they start getting these pops and these weird things. It doesn't feel quite right. And that's when we start to push harder. And when we push harder, we run out of vocal, or, they start to get raspy and not work as well. You can blow out your voice. So this comes back to these same foundations. If we're not addressing the nutritional stuff beforehand, we can really have too much inflammation, cause these vocal issues, and you potentially get like those nodules and things that you hear horror stories about where people can't sing for months, right? So definitely critical. I can't emphasize enough how important it is. Now what to do. All right, so let's get some tactics in here, because I can get way into the weeds on that. So what you can do right now, and what we see happen a lot, is things like dairy. A lot of cow dairy can cause a lot of excess mucus. So we generally want to stay away from that. A lot of people talk about honey or throat coat teas, that kind of thing. Sometimes it's useful, but a lot of the times we might just be masking the pain. And if we're masking the pain, we might just be pushing farther than we should. And then suddenly you wake up the next day without a voice because you didn't know that you were causing damage. So I'm a big fan of the most free, most natural thing you can do, which is drink some water. Don't take all the wild and crazy supplements and things. Like, you don't need every spray in the world or all the honey. Like, warm up your voice properly, learn to use your posture, and today, hydrate. Today, hydrate, and learn about vocal health in general. Once again, it's not an easy path, right? It's another skill, just like you're learning all this recording stuff. We've got to learn about our voice and how to use it properly, right? Another fun little tactic, though, if you feel like your voice is starting to get funky, like I can feel mine is right now a little bit, I meant to bring in some sparkling water. That when you drink sparkling water after your voice has been going for a while, you've been talking or singing a whole lot, what it does is actually rebalances nitric oxide levels between your like nasal cavity in your head and lower, so that way suddenly things just like balance out again. And it's this really weird, funky little hack. And so I always have sparkling water on stage. I'll go to the venue and it's just like it's on my list. Like, I want Pellegrino. Normally they have a cooler sitting on stage with some Pellegrino next to my spot. So
I never heard that before. That's cool.
Yeah, super uncommon for some reason. Probably because so many singers are drinking beer, so that kind of takes care of it. But something carbonated. Something carbonated. But we want to keep the inflammation down. So I definitely recommend some of that. And one thing that we mentioned earlier, I know, Ben, you were curious about a supplement that I do recommend. In general, I don't want to recommend supplements because the supplement industry is a weird, wacky place.
Yeah.
It's a spot where they're marketing quick fixes. They're marketing like, take this capsaicin, you're going to burn so much fat, bro. Like, chill. You can get that from a freaking like pepper. Like, just have some more spicy food. You'll get that same from the supplement, right? So watch out for supplements. Now, there are a few that I do recommend to just about every musician that I talk to. The first one, the one that I've noticed help vocal health, is called Restore. And it's also being marketed under another name called Ion Biome. And they've got a couple different versions. One of them is a liquid that you can drink. The other one is a nasal spray. The nasal spray is $15 and lasts you like 2 months. It is magical. Now, what it does is it actually goes in to seal up our gut lining. And if you didn't know, your gut lining is actually one large tube from your nose and your mouth all the way through to your colon. That entire system is your gut. So it's not just your stomach, right? So by using this spray, We're going to seal up that gut lining, which so often can get, they call it leaky gut. It gets permeable, lets in these toxins and things, and ruins the mucosal layer. So the mucosa, like the snotty stuff throughout this whole lining, is actually something critical to your vocal health. We need this to be, we need the right amount of like snotty substance on our vocal folds, or else they're not going to work well together. So by using this spray, it helps to seal all that up and rebalance that mucosal lining to a proper level. So super helpful. I use it at night after gigs, and I've noticed a significant difference in how quickly my voice heals after, you know, a weekend of 4-hour shows, which we would so often have. I could take Monday off, no singing, have this spray each night, and by Tuesday, I'd feel back to normal again. Whereas previous to that, it would take me probably 3 days, so I wouldn't feel back to like ready to sing till Wednesday, Thursday.
Wow.
And they don't pay me. They don't pay me yet for this, so you know, there's no incentive on my end.
Yeah, we always have to say that on this podcast because we rave about new things we've bought.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, I get the disclaimer. So we always I want to be mindful of your time here, but we always give drummers a hard time on this podcast. So say something about drumming, drumming is very physical, and I just know from personal experience in my band, my high school band, which is one of the more serious bands I was in, kind of even coming out of high school. The drummer ended up with really, really bad tendonitis, and he couldn't play for a while. Like you said, it was somewhere around 3 to 6 months, and he ended up having to not relearn drums, but he had to rearrange his kit completely. Where he put his snare, where he put his toms, where he put his cymbals, and it was a process for him to get back to the. He might tell you he never got back to the level of skill he had. So drumming is very physical. It takes a lot of endurance. So say something for the drummers in the audience.
So first of all, drummers, I am grateful for you, and I love every dang one of you, even the ones that are playing out of time that we're going to make fun of, right? So I love every one of you, especially all my drummers in the past. Corey, Mike, Kenny, all you guys, I love you so much. And thank you for being in the pocket to handle my drunk idiot bass playing at night. So back in the day. So for the drummers, something specific for drummers to do, and I mean, really this can apply to everybody, is let's look once again at some foundations and things that can prevent this. Posture is absolutely critical for drummers because we've got all these motions going on. We're moving all over the place, especially if you're one of those like Neil Peart style drummers with 40,000 drums, right? You're moving everywhere. We've got to understand how our body moves properly in order to not overdo it, right? We can't address any issues with your hand, with your arms, if we haven't addressed the spine, like we mentioned. So one of my drummer friends, his name's Gustin, killer drummer, so good, so good. He hired Dave Elich. Dave Elich played for like the Mars Volta and these guys, and Dave Elich is a monster at posture, at everything that we're talking about for drummers. So drummers, if I were you, I would save up enough money to hire Dave Elich for one session to fix your life. He will tell you what to do. And if you can book him for more than one session, do it. Like investing in yourself like that, investing in a 1-hour session with someone like that is so unbelievably game-changing. So game-changing. Because he's got eyes, he's got ears that we don't have at our level. He's been doing this for so long, putting in so much time and energy and money and focus into his practice for himself and into teaching this for other people, that he can see our issues from a mile away. And he can give you 3 pointers that'll change your life, right? And it doesn't have to be Dave. It can be that guy Mike that we talked about earlier, Mike Schwartz, killer guy. It can be, hell, if you want to ask me questions, like hit me, send me a message. I will talk. Find someone that can help point out your specific shortcomings. Take that feedback and put it to practice.
That's great advice, because a lot of times we, especially in the studio, I think our focus is like, I'm going to buy gear, right? I'm going to buy that extra thing. And like, we don't think about how much using that money to invest in ourselves and our skills and our awareness can actually be a much better way to get a step change improvement in something. So kudos to you for that advice.
Thanks. And it's just crucial. I didn't understand that for so long. And I spent money on better gear. And then I'd show up to the gig and there was someone with way worse gear that was way better than me. And I felt stupid. I was like, oh man, he's playing a Squire like through like one pedal, a Boss like Orange Overdrive, and he sounds like a monster. And here I am like with this badass glowing pedal board, and I'm just like messing up Yngwie licks is all I was doing. Like it wasn't doing anybody any good. And so once you can come back to like, what is it that really matters, especially in times like these, where things are changing. We don't have gigs on stage anymore. We've got to be adaptable. And the way you learn to adapt is investing in your brain, investing in your body. If you do those things, you can adapt to so many situations. Okay, gigs aren't there. What's something else I could do? Okay, my recording client's dried up for some reason. What else can I do? And we learn to adapt. But we can't do that if we don't invest the time, the energy, the money, and focus into the places that matter, into the foundations that'll carry you through a long-term successful music career.
Right on. Well said. Well, Rusty, it's been awesome, man. I mean, if you have anything else, feel free to add it, and feel free to talk about, what you guys are up to and where people can find your work.
Absolutely. So my first thing is I wanted to ask you guys, what's your favorite food? Just overall.
I love sushi.
Yeah.
Big sushi fan.
So good.
Anything breakfast food, man. Breakfast burritos. I've been making breakfast burritos during quarantine. I got my technique down pat. And I don't know if it's the healthiest food. The way I make it, it's okay. But that's my number one lately, yeah.
I love it.
What about you?
The burrito wrapping technique is its own skill. Like you invested in yourself, you've got that skill for life now, so you can wrap burritos forever.
I'm considering a coach. Yeah, I'm considering a coach for a couple of lessons. Yeah. What about you, man? What's your favorite?
Oh man. I've always been addicted to tacos and ice cream, and just this week, overall, my favorite food is whatever my wife cooks. Because she's unbelievable. I love her, and she doesn't pay me to say that, but I promise it's crazy good. Right? I got a shout out to her anyways. Follow her at It's Nikki on Instagram. You could see all this food that we eat. It's unbelievable.
Ooh,
she made a pumpkin pie that doesn't take any baking. She thinks she was done with it in 10 minutes, and it's all healthy as heck ingredients. It's unbelievable. So satiating, so delicious. Way too good. So that's in the fridge. I actually was just plowing that down my face right before I walked in for this podcast. So that's way good.
So where can people find you?
Yeah. Currently, if you're walking around Salt Lake City, you still won't find me because I'm hidden away in an Airbnb basement. So you'll find me walking around the streets with my shirt off, getting as much sunlight as possible, even when it's 20 degrees out.
Nice.
But as far as online and where it's easier, Instagram is where we really live. So find us on there at The Coach Rusty. And we also have another account at Find Your Total Health. They both put out a ton of amazing content specifically for musicians to stay motivated, to stay healthy, to get things done. If you want if you have any questions about what we talked about today or about your own personal health, shoot me a DM on there. Either me or my team will get right back to you. You can send me an email. Just shoot me an email right now. I don't care. thecoachrusty@gmail.com. Please bug me. And if you find my phone number, send me a text. I don't care. Let's talk, man. Let's take some action. Let's make some things happen. So, find me there. RustyOsborne.com is the website. Currently under construction. Should be up, I'm sure, by the time this goes. But
Cool. Well, I got to say, man, I know you're a big proponent. I've heard you talk about this before, is people connecting in a meaningful way online. And I can tell you, I mean, this is a perfect example of that, where you, I think, commented on one of my studio posts, and it wasn't like a generic comment. And then like I reached out to you, and then we spoke offline, and like now you're a cool dude out there in the world doing cool work that I know. And so like this to me is like it's an example of Instagram and the internet at its best, is like people making genuine connections. So kudos to you for that and the work you're doing. It really is wonderful content, and we really appreciated having you on here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you so much for having me. Way appreciate you guys and the good work that you're doing helping people here. It's really, really great stuff. People need help, man. We all need help.
Yeah,
for sure.
That's true. Thanks, Rusty. Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, man.
Great to meet you guys.
If
If you're enjoying the podcast, take a minute to leave a rating wherever you like to listen to it, or share it with your friends on social media. Also, Benjamin and I are working engineers, and we love helping people turn ideas into finished productions. So if you're interested in working with one of us, or just want to discuss a project you're working on, reach out. You can find my work at calmfrogrecording.com, get me on Instagram at calmfrogrecording, or shoot me an email, vk@calmfrogrecording.com. And you can check Benjamin's work out at dreamloudstudio.com. Hit him up on Instagram at dreamloudstudio, or by email, ben@dreamloudstudio.com. And finally, join our Facebook group to engage with a whole group of friendly, like-minded people who are interested in DIY recording. Just search for DIY Recording Guys on Facebook.